What relationship in your life have you been struggling to maintain, and how might understanding your brain's unique wiring help you approach it differently? Well, I had a really great conversation with Ari Tuckman, a psychologist, who's also an author of 5 books, and his new one, the ADHD Productivity Manual, is coming out in May, so I highly recommend you chase that book when it comes out. We had a really good conversation about relationships, be it personal or business. My intention originally was to talk about business entrepreneurial relationships, but actually it turns out it's applicable to all types of relationships with your family, your spouse, your friends, business, team, everything. And the main theme we were talking about, or the main theme actually that came out from his discussion, was communication is crucial. That seems to be the number one thing that a lot of people misunderstand. And having direct, honest communication with any friendship is key, be it neurodiverse or neurotypical. That was just a nice blanket statement for everyone. To maintain proper relationships, communication is crucial, and it has to be direct and honest communication. Now, a lot of things that we did talk about was the differences between social expectations between a neurodiverse and a neurotypical. So a lot of times, the social expectations of neurotypicals are often misunderstood or misinterpreted as intentional actions of disrespect because our brain doesn't function the same way. If it's important to you, you should do this for me. But in reality, my brain is wired differently. And it's not that I forgot or I don't care. Well, actually, I did forget. It's not that I don't care. It's just my brain does things differently. And a lot of times they don't understand what's going on with their brain. And we need to talk about that. We need to communicate that. And that was his second point. And us as ADHD entrepreneurs, we're starting to get a good understanding of our ADHD brain and how it works and how they are different, operate different than other people. The social convention, the neurotypicals. I was trying not to use the word normal, so that's why I was kind of rambling there. But we understand how our brain works. It's different than others, so we need to advocate for that. But according to him, or as he explained, every time he gave us an example of the explanation to communicate the brain differences, he did not use the 4 letters ADHD. He never said because of ADHD or this ADHD. He explained it without using the term. And there's a couple reasons why. One, people take you more seriously in a certain extent, or are more apt to listen to you in your explanation if you're not using a label as a general statement. And that's what a lot of people do. I have autism, I have ADHD, I have depression, I'm a quick starter, whatever. It's a kind of like a statement of an excuse. But if you understand how your brain works, you can explain the differences without having to use those labels. And the thing is, if you use those labels, you don't know what their interpretation of those labels are. Is it positive? Is it negative? Is it sad? Is it happy for you? We don't know. So when we start using the labels, you now put them into an automatic bias, be it good or bad. So if we start using language and vocabulary that does not include the labels ADHD, autism, dyslexia, people are more apt to listen, to understand the differences. If they are the right people that you're going to have a relationship with, they will understand because you're explaining to them. And you're explaining the differences to them. Like for me, I tell a lot of my staff, if they tell me something or do something, ignore my first facial reaction because that is my brain not letting me catch that initial reaction. It comes out. Wait 5 seconds. Most likely, 9 times out of 10, my reaction will change. Therefore, that is the proper response. So just explain that with him. My impulsivity kind of takes the best of me, so just ignore that first expression, right? Or that first reaction. Now, that's not an excuse. I really work hard, and I'm aware of it to try and catch myself as much as I can, but sometimes I can't. Or another way is my work-term memory, like my short memory, let me rephrase that. Because of our working memory, deficit, that I'll call deficit compared to others, I have a hard time remembering things. So and I usually write down, I don't have something to write down for me. So in order for me to help you get to your solution and make sure I got it right, can you email me what you require me to do and give me an extra few points to make sure I do exactly what you need? Most times they will be happy to do that because you just said that working memory is not good. I don't have the proper notes, and I'm going to help you. If you help me, you can make sure that you got your extra points, that you can be better served by me from a business standpoint. So these are like subtle things that I help people with, is to learn a new vocabulary to explain the differences. And that's very key to a successful relationship, is that people understand the differences, behavioral differences, not only brain differences, any, interest differences. Again, it all comes back to communication, and that's the common theme. Okay. Now, the thing is, he really had a good point. And I remember my wife, when I got diagnosed with ADHD, she took a program for spouses who don't have ADHD. And the one thing they did talk about was, once the initial stage of the relationship is, the first is very exciting, is interesting, is new. And then once it gets to a more maintenance stage, don't be surprised if the perceived interest is gone. Because now it's kind of like in the boring maintenance phase of a friendship or relationship. And that's, in a way, it's a brain thing. And it's not as exciting. And I see that with new friendships as well, or new people. I get really excited, very interesting, and then later on it's hard to keep track. For a while I've been blaming them for not keeping in touch, but in a way I'm kind of forgetting to keep in touch, because a lot of times I'm just into a lot of stuff, doing the different things, and next thing I know, it's 6 months, a year passed by, and I was supposed to call them a week after we talked. So we need to recognize as well that maintaining relationships takes intentional effort. And remember, look, the key word is intentional. It doesn't come easy, fluidly to a lot of our brains. It comes to intentional effort. Now, a lot of you might be thinking, well, I get in touch with a lot of people. Yeah, but look at it. Is it an impulsive thing, or you just randomly ran into them, or you're always in the area to be always in their face? There's a difference between not being in those situations where you intentionally say, hey, that good friend of mine, I haven't talked to you in 3 months, or I'm going to call you in 3 months. I'm starting to schedule into my calendar to call so-and-so a friend, because I will forget. I will lose track of time. Remember the time blindness. We lose track of time so easily. So part of my intentional effort is scheduling time to get in touch with people. Even though the normal world says, well, it should be easy, you should be able to remember that stuff. Guess what? My brain is now or not now. We know that time frame. So to be now, I need to make that time visible, and I need that to be a reminder later. So I use apps technology to make me remind that. Okay. So for a lot of us with ADHD, we struggle with the boring maintenance of the phase of relationships. That is a normal thing for ADHD brain. So don't feel ashamed. Now that you're aware of it, we need to be a little more intentional to maintain those relationships, because society expects our ADHD brain to work like everyone else's, and that's not very true. So that's why we got to be a little more intentional. And in the end, in summary, no matter what the relationship is, it takes intentionality and direct and honest communication to maintain a healthy relationship, be it personal or business. I really hope you got something out of this conversation with Eric Tuckman, because there's a lot of stuff in there that maybe you don't realize you're doing, or now you understand why you're doing what you're doing. It's your brain. It's not you. It's not a personal failure, or like I had written out earlier, it's a system failure. It's not a personal failure. So let's look at our past failures as system failures, not personal failures. Now that we know the issue of the system, we can convert that into personal successes. Will we be perfect? No. Will we meet all the expectations of the neurotypical world? No. But we could always try to make it better with proper, direct, and honest communication. So, what relationships in your life have you been struggling to maintain? And now that you know what you know now, what will you do to make the change? Please send me an email at André@theimpulsivethinker.com. I would love to hear what you think. So thanks again for learning with me. We'll talk to you soon.